Resources Company.
He almost just right. But he's probably just running a minute or something like that. Should be pretty easy.
Open the meeting. City of Trinidad Planning, Zoning, and Variance Commission, regular session agenda, May 9th, 2023. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. I may be here. Yeah.
Hey. Roll call.
Leone,
Here.
Coker,
Here.
Materano. Materano. Spain,
Yes, ma'am.
Norris,
Here.
Armijo,
Here.
Rolo, and Lopez.
Any public comments? Not on the agenda for tonight? Okay. Approval of the minutes, April 11th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve as written. I'll second it.
Roll call.
Okay. Leone,
Yes.
Coker,
Yes.
Materano,
Yes.
Spain,
Yes, ma'am.
Norris,
Yes.
Armijo,
Yes.
Rolo, Lopez.
Lopez?
Wait, so Luis isn't on this board?
No, ma'am.
All
Yeah.
right, no Lopez. No wonder he's not here.
Yeah.
Well, Norris, did,
Yeah, you did.
And I have-
Did you call me?
Did I call Norris?
No.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
It's going great.
So we have some, number 5, which is old business. Any updates on area-wide planning efforts?
Area-wide planning efforts, it was on April 26th. We had our initial meeting and our consultant came to town. We had a meeting there's a working group, which Sam Coker is a member, on everyone's behalf. That group is that was just an introductory kind of visioning, getting the process started, getting opinions from people, getting like a first-hand impression of like what people want to see from a planning perspective. So we had that at Space to Create. Some of the other people there were staff, and then Dr. Epper from the college, and Ed Griego from Tour Board.
I'm sorry, David.
Oh, no worries. Okay. We're still gonna have a few more of them, so it's fine. And then we'll start having stakeholder groups, which are like people in the community. So Jake Chimino had his when he was there, and they talked a lot about La Puerta and what was going on in the riverfront, and then we'll start to incorporate more interviews as we go. Has there been any conclusions? Not really. It's really at the beginning of the process and expressing wants and things like that, wants and needs.
Sounds good.
Is that having to do with something similar to what's going on this Saturday? Was it a volunteer fair?
Oh, yeah.
I got an email about it and
Yeah, so it's not related, but the volunteer fair, I think that it's an effort to try to get people a little bit more organized, because there's so many volunteers in town and there's so many boards and commissions in town, and it's hard to recruit people sometimes. So it was an opportunity for people to show up and see what's going on if they wanted to participate in a few things.
Okay.
Cleanups, art, all sorts of stuff.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Number 6, public hearings. 2023 CUP-UT, or 02, sorry. T&Z Enterprises, consideration for a conditional use permit for operating a chiropractic business in a residential building at 1122 East First Street.
Staff.
Staff? Staff.
So, this is a conditional use permit for 311 Fairview Avenue. And this is to allow a business use in a residential home. So the idea is that the owners, Mark and Kimberly Teason, have a chiropractic business. There's an option to do a home-based business, which is permitted by right. But they feel like they want to be honest about how many customers they'll have per day, and they want to have a couple more provisions in their home, not necessarily their home, but their residential property, that would provide for maybe 6 or 8 appointments a day. So not too much more. And some of those provisions include, parking, taking the parking off the street, providing ADA access, things like that. Ultimately, at the end of the day, they feel that, a home-based business is appropriate for this district, especially because they are a chiropractor company. So, it fits with some of the medical amenities of the area. And also, eventually, they feel that it needs to be residential in nature and that it could be sold as a residence and not a commercial business. So really, the conditional use is for the business activity and accommodating that activity, but not really, it's not a change of use or something like that.
Just to clarify, you said that they have the opportunity to do a home-based business just by right alone.
Correct.
And the only thing that would change is if they did this by right alone, it would just lower the amount of activities and they wouldn't be able to be upfront about it and put up a sign and everything like that.
Yeah, it would limit them a little bit.
Okay.
And I think that, with a residential property, you probably have so many off-street parking spaces or a certain type of driveway. In this case, the driveway would accommodate more vehicles and there would be some ADA provisions. So it's really just an effort to be transparent, I think, for the property owners.
That's good.
Yeah,
Does the conditional use go away if they sell a property?
it does not. But it's always because it's conditional. If for some reason in the future there was an issue, it could be called, they could be called to come back in. Yeah. And if it's a business, they're probably going to have more stipulations than on the business side of things, inspections and things like that, than just a home-based business.
As a condition of approval, we could actually put in it that it's, if the business is sold, that it is reviewed, right?
Yes, that you could add that stipulation.
What if another person, purchasing person wanted to use it as yet commercial, so to speak, property?
Yeah.
It could be sold, is that correct?
Yeah.
Now it's been redone. If somebody was gonna do that and they wanted to go back in, would they have to come back in, get that released, or would that not make any sense?
Well, I think for their business application, I think that the premises and that sort of thing is going to be reviewed. It's, if you don't have a building permit, then they're gonna come to inspect your premises, and so it depends on what the use is and if it's appropriate. So because it's set up more for residential use, it's probably a bit limiting as to what type of commercial uses could be there. Yeah.
No, you
So, let's open the hearing. Anybody here speaking on your behalf? Come on up.
Podium?
Yes, sir, please state your name.
Mark Teason, residing at 311 Fairview Avenue. Just to be clear, we currently reside at 311 Fairview Avenue. The property we're asking for this conditional use for is at 1122 East First Street. It's across the alley, so I just want to make sure there's no confusion.
Correct, sorry.
And I'm a 5th generation chiropractor. Kim and I have been doing this. We met at school, got married. She's been working with my family. And we moved to Pennsylvania from South Dakota, and now we're here in Trinidad. Just to address one of the concerns, our primary thought in approaching this as a conditional use was simply that we're asking for conditional permission to use this property as this. We have zero intent of selling the practice and having someone else come in there. When we closed the practice in Pennsylvania, we thought, oh, hey, maybe we'll sell. There was a guy that we knew in school that was an upperclassman, thought really highly of him, and considered selling the practice to him. Then I got a story in the local news that he was in trouble for abusing his wife and had all kinds of issues going on. And so that's something, selling it as a business, zero thought on our side. I wouldn't even consider selling the practice. I would only ever, at some point, hopefully we live long enough that we outlive our chiropractic usefulness as a daily practice. My intent would be to potentially move into that home and live there as a residence. So this isn't something I would be looking at or entertaining selling, or, I don't want to see a beauty shop there 16, 20 years from now. I don't want to see a vape shop, but Lord knows what they'll be selling in another 20 years. But our intent is for just to really build a super high quality, virtually maintenance-free residential home in Trinidad. We want ranch style, either stucco or fiber cement siding, something with very little maintenance, metal roof. We want it to just be a gorgeous, beautiful little home in Trinidad that can serve a young couple starting out or a retiring individual, and just add to that. We don't really want to change what the community is. I think neighborhood is incredibly important, and when the application process came, it said adjoining properties so they could be notified. I even went beyond the properties that directly adjoin the property itself. There's some that are kind of diagonal, kitty corner away. I feel those people need to have their voice heard too. So I'm really glad this process is in place for this, because I don't want to put a bunch of extra lighting. I've lived in a home where the neighbor's spotlight for security shines in my bedroom window. I hated it. That just kind of drove me nuts. So there's already a street light at the intersection of First Street and the alleyway that cuts across there. So there's pretty good lighting there already. We want to kind of just clean up the property. The home that was there, I originally thought about trying to just fix it up, and it just wasn't possible. So it's going to be a new structure, everything built to current specifications and standards. And like I said, we just want a really nice home that can serve us the rest of our lives and someone else for another 100 years.
So you would be you'd be living at your residence that you reside in now.
Correct.
And this would become, you'll do the demo, you'll get it built, and then.
Yep, demo's already been completed, everything is finished there. So what was a pretty eyesore home is now a little divot, maybe a big divot. But hopefully soon we can get that turned around and transitioned into construction phase. But yeah, things that were addressed in the presentation, Kim and I have no staff. It's 2 chiropractors, we're married, we treat our patients. We schedule you, that's your time with the doctor. We schedule basically on the hour. So we have a low volume practice by design. We like to get to know our patients, we like to help them figure out what's going on, understand their situation, and try to really help them out in a meaningful way. This isn't I guess the least popular term in the chiropractic world is rack 'em and crack 'em, where you've got a waiting room filled with 40 people and 5 minutes with the doctor and you're out and you come back 3 times a week. We really don't work that way. We don't practice that way. We like spending time with patients. We like getting to know them. And I guess my hope would be that if the neighbors did notice anything, they'd notice improvements in the neighborhood, not detriments. I don't want to do this if it's going to be a problem. I hate fighting with neighbors. I hate arguments. I don't like people bickering with each other. So we're just trying to, be good citizens and make sure everybody's informed of what's going on, and that, not that they're making business decisions, but if people have concerns, we want to address them.
I do have a question on the parking, so I'm on your.
Yep.
And so, on that drawing, I read back in the report where it talked about ADA parking. Is that gonna be on this property, or is your ADA gonna be away?
On the site, to be the north end of the building, will be the public parking. We envision a fully van handicap accessible spot and 2 other parking spots in the front there. That would be the only place the public would access the property. There would be some parking spaces in the back for ourselves to park a car, or services, heaven forbid you need to call an ambulance one day, they could come on the backside, access through the alley, and have easy access without working around cars.
So then the front is public parking only,
Yeah.
the rear is only for
Private.
private, okay. But you would have I believe tell me if I misunderstood, but you have another area across the alleyway?
Yeah, our
That's like
house,
an overflow?
yeah,
So-
our house is on Fairview, 311 Fairview, is directly across the alley. And right now, the entirety of the yard is wide open. We do intend to put some fencing up and landscape and, beautify it a little bit. But basically, my driveway is a very large cutoff from Fairview Avenue to the alley. In fact, quite often we get people who are new to the neighborhood or just looking for someone or trying to make a delivery drive through our driveway because they think it's a road. So, but yeah, there's plenty of access on the Fairview side. Given our use or our proposed use of the property, I can't imagine why anyone would need access to it. However, if something like fire remediation, the trucks can pull in off of Fairview and stage in our driveway. It's probably, it's the full length of that lot, and it's probably 60 feet wide, 40 feet wide probably, that you could access a truck down in there. So I could envision, if there were an emergency there, I could envision the way it's set up now. You could have 3 fire trucks and an ambulance parked on my Fairview property to kind of stage.
I think where I was getting at is it wouldn't really be used as overflow parking for your patients, correct?
Correct, no.
Because that would not be allowed, correct? Because we're dealing with this problem.
Right, just
Okay.
that one site. And
Okay,
really, it doesn't fit with our business model.
correct.
We, 1 person an hour, 2 doctors. Right now, I'm not currently working in my chiropractic capacity. Due to COVID, we just moved here. We rented from Dr. Lowe for a period of time, and then rented a space in the Bell Block. And right about the time we're ready to open the office and get set up, you start getting notices about COVID and shutdowns and non-essential workers. And so I've actually been working in the construction industry for the last 3 years, doing remodeling and working with an excavation company. And so I just started a home inspection business. So right now it's just 1 doctor. I intend to get back in the office and flex my chiropractic muscle a little bit. So hopefully this would create the opportunity to do that. But it would be, maximum 2 cars there at one time. And a good share of the time, the way we schedule, it's a husband and wife, so it's 2 people in 1 car. I really don't envision traffic issues. At least not that I've been able to foresee.
Anybody else?
On this comment from the city, Trinidad, did you notice what the fire department said about the line?
I haven't seen that.
It says, make sure overhead lines are a minimum of 13 feet high.
Yes, along the alley there, the lines kind of hang down there. My preference, I don't know what kind of say I have in this matter, but my preference would be to go back to the power pole and come underground. I just prefer that. I don't like overhead aerials. It's a safety issue, it's in the way, it interferes with equipment, it just causes problems. So if that's possible, I would like to see that done. I don't know if that's allowed in town or if that's.
I think you'd have to get together with the city, somebody from the electrical
The electrical
department,
utilities.
and talk to them about that.
But I know I'm gonna have to, I believe that property had not previously been hooked onto the sewer. So I know I'm gonna have to deal with bringing sewer in, we're gonna have to bring the gas line in, we're gonna have, so there'll be utility services that I'm aware are gonna have to be addressed and changed and added to. But yeah, my vision is I prefer when overhead power lines are not visible. I just think that's safer and nicer. So if it's possible, I'd love to figure that out.
I think one of the main things in that particular site is your description of your retaining wall on that back side that drops off. Now that to me would be a safety issue. Putting
Yes,
that wall in there, I would say it'd have to be mandatory.
yes. I
Because you
I
could drop
won't do
off
it
there and go
without.
down to somebody else's house.
Absolutely. And, well, there's two things dealing with the slope of that hill as it comes
Right.
down to First Street. Down the hill, Steve, the neighbor Steve, I've been talking with him quite a bit about adding the retaining wall. And the other thing I want to do is, I mean, it's one thing to put in a retaining wall, but retaining walls need drainage. So you have to drain that appropriately. It has to go the right place. You have to ensure that what comes off of there is going to be able to be handled by what's below it. So I haven't had anyone out there other than just a contractor who was kind of giving me ideas and things that had occurred to him. But that's something I want to make sure we do the right way, because that whole valley there beyond First Street or downhill, it's pretty steep. And there's, I mean, we don't get a lot of rain until we get a lot of rain, and then it's an issue. So I want to make sure that that's all done correctly, and we want to maintain as much of that lot as possible as open space. My intention with the handicap parking is, and I don't know what the city's regulations say, but I'd like a stone driveway approach and then asphalt for where the cars park themselves. Because as much as possible, I want natural drainage. I don't want, like a ton of concrete and asphalt that creates pooling of water that flows into a stream and then cuts its own little channel and path. I think natural drainage is really important, especially in an area like that where it does slope. And Steve, the neighbor, I mean, his house is right down at the bottom of that hill. There's an alley that used to run between his house and this First Street property that Steve tells me the city abandoned. I don't know that to be factual, but so there is like a flat area there where it appears you could drive a car. So there is some space, and he's got a big retaining wall built up just a few feet away from his house with very large stones stacked. It's actually a nice wall. But yeah, I would want something that protects his property. So the last thing I want is to come home some afternoon and find a third of my property in his living room. So that's something we have to address and make sure that as we're addressing it, that the right amount of drainage is there, and not only that, but then where does that drainage discharge? That's a factor. I mean, you can't just put a big pipe in, collect a ton of water, and shoot it out here onto someone else's property. Like, we gotta figure out logistically what's the best way to handle that, and look at what's below it and what does that mean for those properties too. I grew up in South Dakota. That's a place where people fight about water, where it goes and why you changed it. And so I'm familiar with those kind of issues and concerns that people have.
But a lot of that would be handled through plot plans and all that.
And that's
you
what
know,
I was gonna
drainage
mention,
reports.
I'm new to City of Trinidad, one thing I love that they do is they do a development
be
meeting
engineered.
every Friday. So when you're ready,
Mhm.
we'll have you come in with your site plan and some of your other plans, maybe a little bit more.
Yep.
Lot plan, and, we'll go over all that stuff and every single department will be able to look at it for you, so I like that they do that.
Yeah. And two, when we started this process, I came into the city asking a bunch of questions. I started the building inspector and I said, what can I do? I'm a homeowner. I initially wanted to do the construction myself, and I started drawing out the prints on graph paper. I drew my footings, and I came in and I said, is this acceptable? And he said, homeowner, there's certain things, and I wanted to know from the very beginning that we're doing things in the right order, right? Like, I don't want to get halfway into a project and then find out, oh, hey, here's this. So coming in and trying to get everybody on board right away was important for me. And Chris was real helpful at walking me through the process and looking at different considerations. And so that's been something that from the very beginning, I've wanted to make sure we're doing right, and certainly continuing and going through. If someone has a concern, I want to know in the beginning. You know, it's easy to fix a problem before you make it.
City of Trinidad's got good people on their staff. You just have to ask questions.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of times they'll go up there
And
and talk to you and show you.
absolutely,
We have an excellent engineer on staff, and he was a professional engineer,
good.
and now he works for the city,
That's
and
awesome.
he'll give you ideas.
Yeah. That's what I need, because I don't know everything. I'm smart enough to know that. But I have been involved in construction, and I do have some understanding, and my hope is to be involved with the project, not just, hire a bunch of people and turn around and hope it's done in 2 years. So I want to be hands-on, I want to be making sure things are right, and I want to keep an eye on the project, and just really make sure, through all of it, we in the plan there's fencing, like privacy fencing. That's not just privacy for the business or the building, it's privacy for the neighbors. I'm sure neighbors who live there now don't want 100 cars a day driving in and creating ruckus and being there at all hours of the night. And I just want to be a good neighbor and try to do everything the right way.
What are your hours gonna be?
Most likely 9 a.m. to 5. We don't like to work all day. The kids are going off to college and in college now, so at some point we'll have our lives back. So we want to enjoy Trinidad and all it has to offer, and kind of live an active retirement, I guess. We don't want to give up working, but I'm not doing 12, 14-hour days anymore either.
Anything else?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone for or against that might be sitting in the audience, please come forward.
I'm Andy Gomez, my
Cindy
wife
Gomez.
Cindy. We live on 301 Fairview. We're, they're between us and Yowie, right there. Neighbors there, and I don't have a problem with it. Like they say, don't have so much traffic there. It would be nice to have a nice building there. 'Cause I know that's been like that for a long time. They really fixed up the house real nice. And it's sat for a long, I don't know, 10 years, 20 years, I think. Because I live right next door. I'm right on 301 Fairview. On Fairview and First Street, on that part. And like I say, it'd be nice, have something going on there, and that's what I think of.
And what was your name again? I'm sorry.
Andy Gomez?
Andy
Oh, my wife Cindy.
Thank you.
He,
Thank
he,
you. Thank y'all for coming down.
I'm not a big
he
talker.
directed me to the property yesterday.
Oh.
I stopped at his house and I said,
Can't find-
"Where is this at?"
Not where that-
He said, "I'll show you." He directed me to the property.
So my name's Jeff Cochran with Sokol Architectural. I've been retained for the services to design this, this project. If we do get the conditional use permit, we will be designing this as a residence with some minor requirements with ADA compliance. But we want this to look like a residence. It's in a residential area. We want it to look like a residence. And then the clients plan on moving back into it as their residence in the future. So I'm all for it.
Excellent. And we appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for coming down.
And I want to be the black sheep because I'm not like just outright against anything, like it's their property, people can do with what they want. Because my name's Daniel Martinez, I live at 1127 East First. I submitted a letter, I don't know if you,
We're gonna read it.
which that kind of gave some of my concerns, but I figured I'd just come and kind of say them anyway, because, I've lived there, and ironically, the first I even heard of it was when I got the letter, and, so, I'm not, trying to sound, but I, like, getting the neighbor's perspective, for the initial planning, I didn't hear nothing about it. And like I said, like in my letter, my only concern is the traffic. I'm the only house whose front porch sits on East First Street. The other house is, kind of like Steve Madrid's house is like way down the hill. He can't see, he would never even see it. The other house that's there is kind of facing a different way. So even though I'm working currently, I don't sit on my front porch as much as I hope to be at some point. But if it's a full out business, because if, I know the conditional uses, it's a residence that's gonna be used as a business, but that's somewhat misleading because if it's a house that's only used as the office and the residence is across the street, then it's a full out business. And if there's gonna be like full parking, ADA compliant and all that, that's just a straight up business on a dead end street. I mean, I know there's technically an alley, but it's a dead end street. So any traffic that goes to it would be on right in front of my house. And, like I said, I drive professionally. I don't really have an issue with traffic per se. But, like I kind of point out in my letter, zoning permits, zoning issues, like the reason there's different zones is, historical for a purpose. There's residence and there's commercial. And like I said, if you're gonna actually just read my letter, then that's fine. And I'll just let that kind of more articulate because I'm a better writer than I am a speaker. But that's my, even if it can be world-class design and the best drainage and it looks perfect and everything, but it's still gonna, like they said, it's still gonna add traffic every hour, all day long. And that's just not something I, would prefer. If you guys pass it, I'm not gonna, go picketing all over and, I'm not gonna freak out. I like I said, my perspective is, from my front porch, I don't want to see a parking lot, and traffic driving, people, coming every day because, like I said, if the front of the business is the north side of the building, that's East First Street, and that is directly across from me. Like as I'm sitting on my front porch, here's the business. And like I said, it's very peaceful as it is now. I mean, granted, the building that was there was pretty old, and that was a whole interesting history on that building. And now that it's gone, it's kind of cool because it was an open view. But to build a nice building there, I have nothing against that. If someone were to live there and it was a residence and a house and it was a new neighbor, I'm all for the neighbors. But this is just strictly people coming. And another sort of thing that I threw in my letter is, businesses, you consolidate businesses downtown so you can get, so the people who go to the chiropractor, they come out of their chiropractic, whatever, and it's like they're at the Mission of Bell. They come out like, oh, let's go have lunch. And that's kind of what makes the downtown area nice. So that's just kind of concerns, if you will. But like I said, if you're gonna read the letter, that's actually a little bit more articulate.
Appreciate your time. We'll go ahead and read this letter. This is from Daniel Martinez, and this was sent to Miss Chris Hall. I am writing to express my concerns about the proposed conditional use permit that would allow a chiropractic business to relocate and be operated at the new building at 1122 East First Street, a dead-end street in a residential neighborhood. As the property owner who would be directly impacted and also as a member of a very small community of neighbors on the 1100 block of East First, I believe that this permit should be denied for several reasons. One of the primary concerns I have with this proposed business relocating to this potential disregard of well-established zoning norms. Zoning regulations are in place for the historic and essential purpose, which is to preserve the integrity and quality of the residential neighborhood. The purpose of the zoning law is to separate incompatible land use and protect property owners from the negative impacts of surrounding uses. Allowing a commercial enterprise like chiropractic business in this residential area would violate the fundamental purpose of zoning regulations. In addition, there are already many commercial areas in Trinidad where a chiropractic business would be more appropriate, areas that would be better served to the community and encourage traffic flow to surrounding commercial establishments. Over the last decade or so, it has been wonderful to see downtown Trinidad restored to a thriving economic environment, and encouraging business to leave the downtown area would be a setback. The city should continue to focus on developing these areas rather than compromising the integrity of the residential neighborhoods with commercial enterprise. Furthermore, the purpose location of this business would not be suitable for the commercial enterprise due to the addition of traffic on a dead-end street that would be generated by the business. This would cause undue congestion, noise, potential safety concerns for surrounding residents. This block of East First is very uneven, has no curbs or sidewalks, and the parking situation is already limited. In the addition of the business would exacerbate the problem. In conclusion, I urge the Commission to deny the proposed conditional use permit for the chiropractic business. The location is not appropriate for the commercial enterprise, and granting a permit would flout zoning regulations, negatively impact the downtown economic development, and potentially harm the serenity of residential streets. Thank you for your consideration this matter. Sincerely, Daniel Martinez.
You can ask him, anybody here wants to say anything, everybody here.
Anybody here?
Can I ask a question here?
Yeah.
Okay, so the problem that I hear that we have with this is seeing the cars. So could we maybe solve this with a privacy screen or some kind of a fencing that makes it so that the 1 to 2 cars that are there that come in aren't visible from the street?
That's certainly something we'd be willing to entertain.
The city could
I don't
entertain
know.
that as well.
I don't know if he wants to see a privacy fence sitting on his porch.
Right.
Well,
Well, it's the right of the
There-
homeowner to put up a fence.
yeah, I mean, we have, I mean, I think the issue is, well, I mean, we can ask, I mean, we have both parties right here, but, it would be nice to be able to proceed forward with this if we could solve the problem of the vista, and I don't, you know, I mean, that could be, it seems like there could be a number of ways. We've dealt with privacy fences for grows. I mean, I think you could do some sort of fence that might satisfy the two parties, so it seems like an easy solution. So I'd throw it out there.
You know, I agree with you. I have a problem. The problem that I have is that you have two homeowners here with equal rights, with opposing wants. And, you know, you want to make both sides happy, you know. I want to represent both of y'all and do what's right for the town and for y'all as well. And that's what makes it difficult is that, you know, I would really like it if we could have an arbitration between the two of y'all and have an understanding that maybe we could settle these differences so that we could move forward. Because I think that your hopes and dreams for what you have are amazing. It's exactly what I'd like to see go into this community. But I also agree that businesses should be downtown. You know, so we're on both sides.
There is some precedent. There are several businesses in the area. There's the former optometrist office, which is just down the hill. That was for sale for a period of time, and we had talked about even purchasing that property, but that's off the market now. Just around the corner, there's several businesses in the neighborhood. What's the name of it? I think it's a rehab type of a facility in what appears to have been an old school building. So, you know, a block or two away, there's a few businesses. So it's not like this is completely unheard of to have any business in a residential area.
Another factor that is very important and weighs heavy is without our approval, you can do this on your own. We can't stop you by right. You can have a home business. The only thing that we can stop you from doing is advertising and putting up a sign.
And the amount of customers per day.
But that's not actually a set amount, is it? I mean, honestly.
I run my architectural business out of my home also.
Exactly. That's what weighs most on my shoulders is that if we can say no, and he can still build this home, and he can still have that business, and he can set up a bedroom inside and tell us to mind our own business.
Can I? Okay, I'm Kimberly Tees and I'm the main chiropractor in the office. I'm 51 years old. We moved here, we wanted to start a practice again. We're not trying to significantly grow the practice. I just want to do what I love to do, treat patients, and that 8 patients a day is a maximum. I physically cannot do that 5 days a week. I would honestly prefer to see maybe 5 patients a day on average, which is no more traffic in that area than homeowners going back and forth in and out of their house. And like you said, we treat 1 an hour. There's not overlap of like a time. I can't help it if someone shows up an hour early for their appointment. However, one person's gone before the next one's coming in generally. And a lot of that scheduling is thanks to the COVID restrictions that we had to deal with at the time. And honestly, I just like to practice that way. I don't like to have a ton of patients in the waiting room. I like to give each person their time. And like I said, mostly one's gone before the other one's even in.
I do think that there's an excellent opportunity here. I think we can sit down and talk about options and try to brainstorm things that make you as comfortable as possible as you can in your home. I've been in that same situation where, like I said, my neighbor put up security spotlights on their property and I didn't sleep for months. So I know what it's like when you live there and things change. So if we can sit down and have a conversation, come up with solutions.
And that's fine, because like I said, I'm not trying, you know, like I said.
Yeah,
you know,
No, and we don't want it to be a high traffic.
If I were in a spot to open a business, you know, on my own in my house, you know, that's something, you know, I don't want something
Yeah.
to get in the way of that. But like, you know, but the thing that aroused my sort of
Excuse me,
suspicion.
hold it, excuse me. I have to stop this, we shouldn't be having a conversation.
sorry.
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, but if,
I would like to comment that
Well, I can
the
just-
ability to have these conversations is incredibly encouraging.
Yeah,
No,
And I find it as, it would give me reason to move forward with an acceptance of this permit.
I really like what you're
Mr.
doing.
Varano wants to talk.
Okay,
We could close it, then we can talk.
let's close.
I could just, if I would just mention, on page 3, some of these, have been addressed in the application, so it could provide some assurances here, because there's some visual, site plan and landscaping that's proposed to be done, and that's all part of the application, and it's already sort of in there and has been considered by staff.
And as far as the fence goes, am I wrong that he said that they're already gonna build a fence around the parking area?
Well, in our, application, it talks about, upgrades, and then landscaping, and those sorts of things, and then,
Well, there is, the way the code is currently written in Trinidad, I believe, privacy fence between properties is allowed to be 6 feet high up to the front of the building, and then it has to drop down to 4 feet. If that's something that makes it makes it more visually or aesthetically pleasing and look less commercial or be less offensive to the neighbors, and the city would allow a change like that, I'm more than happy to work with anyone to figure out solutions that work for everybody. The last thing I'm trying to do in this is ruin someone's experience in their home. Like, I'm not trying to make anyone uncomfortable or have any kind of an adversarial situation. If we can resolve things, that's what I like to do. I'm a solution
I'm gonna
guy.
close the
And-
meeting, so.
There are not good options for the chiropractic office that we're trying to do downtown. Every space is too big, too expensive, I can't afford to stay downtown. I'm upstairs in the Bell Block right now. I cannot afford to continue to practice there
Understood.
because of situations.
I'm gonna close the meeting so we can have.
Okay.
Close the meeting. Comments?
Let's just say that these people were not gonna make a chiropractic practice. And they had 2 teenagers, and each one of those teenagers had a car. And the wife had a car, and he has a car. And he was going to work, and she had to go to work, and the kids are going to school, or whatever. How many more cars are there? It's not gonna be any different than that. You know, I can't see where that could be a hindering, because if it was just a regular residential with a family of 5 or 6 people, you're gonna have a lot more cars.
We're gonna add in the kids as friends.
I can't see there'd be a problem. I really don't.
I don't honestly see a problem with it. For day cars coming in and out of there during the day, I don't see that as a nuisance or an issue for them. So,
I agree. I find it seems to me that it's a pretty well thought out plan. And I personally appreciate, that you went a little bit above and beyond and started talking with people before. It's unfortunate. I don't know, maybe you got a letter later on. I don't know how all that went down. Really not my concern. But it does appear to me that this being brought up means that you both can probably sit down and work together with your architect, get something worked out where both parties are gonna be happy and content. And, you know, you're making the area, you're grooming it, so to speak, you're cleaning it up, you're adding some value to the community, to that block. And I think that's very important. I do know that, you know, some of the fencing, all that stuff, that's all gotta go through, that's code review, that's this. That's really not our concern. That's really gonna be more on the staff and building official side.
I think that, I'm on board with it. I really like the way that, the two owners are willing to communicate to each other. I love their dreams for the neighborhood. I see no problems whatsoever with this.
I see that cleaning up the neighborhood there. I'm familiar with what was there before. And when I looked at it the other day and I realized that house was gone, I couldn't believe it. But anyway, I believe that she's gonna clean up the neighborhood. And I think that if you can get together with your neighbor and it comes to some mutual understanding and you guys both work together, you guys can work it out. I'm not against it.
Yes. Are we to motion time? I like Mr. Marano's analysis about the cars, and that really does kind of help me feel, I think it'd be a low impact on the neighborhood. The fact that we've got people talking is a good thing. I think I'd like to see if we move forward with the motion.
Well, I would like to just point out one thing real fast. I do appreciate, because a lot of that info is in this packet. It did talk about they were only gonna allow so many patients. I mean, a lot of that info is already in here. Before I even walked in here, it seemed to me like it was gonna be not atrocious, some vape shop, so to speak, revolving doors. I didn't get that kind of feel out of this situation at all, so. I appreciate the work that was done on this report. Can I get a motion?
Be made.
I would like to make a motion that we accept, or that we grant this conditional use permit for a chiropractic office.
And I'll second it.
Roll call.
Leone? Leone?
Yes.
Coker?
Yes.
Materano?
Yes.
Spain?
Yes, ma'am.
Norris?
Yes.
Armijo?
Yes.
Go to work.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
Thank you.
Some work done. Work with your neighbor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They'll work it out. Go find a defroster.
I'm so sorry.
My thing is that maybe even if that, you know, you guys, you guys want to, you know, they're city council board, the city plans.
Reports?
Democracy.
Agenda reports?
That's my.
Yeah, from the planning desk, Michael is just moving forward with a clean copy.
Please let me know.
And I don't think he has any reports at that time.
We're gonna have any kind of another meeting with the main site?
I'm not sure his schedule,
So how, like,
but I can get back to
any
you on
customers that
that.
come here, they can swear in.
I think there's one more in the middle of this month. It's like towards the end of this month.
I thought there was another.
I thought there was another
Yeah.
one too.
Maybe it's another work session, but I thought it was something that was,
Another work session.
I thought it was something that was getting thrown in on one of our meetings. That's what I thought, like, I could have swore I remember him saying it was just gonna be like a virtual thing, just take a couple minutes, boom, boom, boom. Because he was talking about, he was gonna be at another,
I thought that was only wait, I'll pull it out last time.
So that was.
Okay.
We had issues, I want to discuss further any issues, but I
Well, they're talking about.
Kind of stalled on that.
but just let us know.
I'll let you know,
You guys have your vision.
if there's any issues that are
I'm
coming up.
not trying to sit there.
Or came up in the last one, I'll have him
But,
review
you
some
know,
of those
like I said-
and then just follow up with.
Like to his point, you know, like when you have like people who have a bunch of kids, like
Yeah.
the house next to me,
Hey,
it's a rental.
excuse me,
I-
excuse me, would you guys mind stepping out, sorry, please?
Like when it's.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
I'm gonna
doing me?
Yeah, I think you're good. That's our frustration right off.
Getting the work
See
done.
what we're doing
Oh my God.
Satisfied customer.
Yeah, there you go, we did our job.
Do we have any commissioner reports?
No commissioner.
Is anyone gonna be going to that volunteer fair on Saturday to represent us? Because I really don't know that I can do it. I'm kind of crazy busy and I had a bear break into my RV out on the farm the other night. Yeah, it's freaking amazing. Just ripped the door right.
I'm not sure yet. I might,
I know they sent me an email and they're requesting somebody from
How long is the thing?
I don't have any information about it, but do y'all require any volunteers for this commission at this time?
I don't know, I just got the email and it says.
Yeah, community. Some commissions are different. They're doing more community development. You know.
We don't have any volunteer positions.
Yeah,
You come to my house.
Code enforcement.
I don't think you want me to do that.
Really? My flower beds are pretty bad.
I'd like to say one thing, and probably doesn't have too much to do with this, but they had downtown up here at the Miners Memorial on Saturday.
Oh, it was
That
fabulous.
was a good turnout. It was very well organized with the car show and everything.
Oh, that was the Hispanic Chamber.
Yeah, Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and it was well organized. They didn't encroach on anybody's property like the Chronicle News. They put a fence up back there in the back. Everything was contained in that fence. The beer garden, everybody was in there, in the beer garden, drank beer in the beer garden. It was a well organized, and I think they should be complimented.
I agree. Music was great.
How did that happen?
They were in a fence.
That's it, yeah.
Well, usually they encroach on the property of the Chronicle News, the old Chronicle News, which is a school.
Yeah, right.
Right.
They just kind of
Yeah.
flowed
Oh,
everywhere.
you should say academy. They put a fence there, there was nothing thrown over there, had plenty of trash containers, it was just well done.
Excellent.
So that's right.
And Marty.
Yeah.
And the Hispanic Commission.
That's all I have to say.
The East Street opening was also well organized.
Yes.
Nice little.
And Sunday morning it was cleaned up.
Yeah.
6 o'clock it was done. It was cleaned all up, there's no trash anywhere. That's the
Our
city of Trinidad
restaurant
staff there.
and resort out at
Okay.
Monument is open now.
Well, it was
So-
doing a lot of nice work out there. Is that being done, because that's city owned, correct?
What's that?
Yeah.
So at Monument.
Yeah.
So when I was out there, because we took my boys out there, my boy, when they were doing their prom, we went out there for pictures, right? And we went to the north, what I'm gonna call the north side of the lake,
That's
right?
the east side.
And that is, what they're doing over there with all the campsites and all that, they really cleaned up that side. Now, they kind of made it hard to get down by the river, down by the lake, but they're really doing a nice job out there.
They're starting some roof work over there too.
So say that
I
again?
think they're starting some roof work over there in the next couple months.
It's looking nice, so.
I'd like to see them expand their menu a little bit, past more of the snack food stuff and into more of the dinner. That'd be nice.
I would agree, but I think they've tried that in the past. And,
It's a very select.
you know, like trying to do like a nice dinner menu. But they're so far out, I mean, I get it, there's people out there.
I'm in.
And so you gotta think about buying all that food, right? Is it gonna sell? Is it gonna go bad? That's right.
Buy a
Oh,
reservation.
How's your drive-through going, Tony? When did you start the drive-through?
About a week.
Really? Okay.
He's always working there.
I know.
Never.
Yeah, I gotta try the drive-through. I haven't been.
It's gonna take a second, John. Gonna work for cement managers.
Don't even go.
Oh, good. That's a good time right there.
Oh my. Well, I don't have anything. Anybody?
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
Motion closed.
Motion to close.
Good, is that whiskey or what?
Yeah.
Come on,
No,
drink it.
no.
There you go.
He's a jerk. You talk coconut on it. Never ending blow.
So that's a sip, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Sonny, I got a question.
5 ounces.
job.
digging out
Thank
half the
you.
mountain out of my farm.
I gotta give you some credit, you
Digging
did a
out
good
half
job
the
on
mountain
that
out of my
report.
farm.
There you go.
Leveling off and making a good area out there. Do you ever buy soil and dirt from anybody?
I got so much.
God, buddy, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do.
What do you, where's it at?
Oh, out there, Picket Wire?
Oh, out by Cokedale,
Yeah.
that Picket Wire
Oh,
Ranches?
okay.
Yeah, so you go out Cokedale and then you head back.
I don't know where you.
Well, is it good, is it good, clean soil? I got a